I'm Natalie Green, a single mother, a software engineer, and a name that was erased from the Green family tree 15 years ago. The day my father slapped me in front of my 7-year-old son, right in the middle of my sister's lavish wedding, was the day I understood. Blood does not equal love. They called me a disgrace, a mistake, someone who should never have come back. But I didn't disappear. I survived. And this time, I'm telling my story, from the nights I coded with a baby on my hip to the home I built from the broken pieces they left behind. If you've ever been cast out of a family that claimed to be unbreakable, stay with me. This story is for you. The morning I received my mother's email, I was standing in my kitchen making Caleb's favorite blueberry pancakes. My 7-year-old son sat at our small wooden table, swinging his legs and humming a song from his favorite cartoon. The sunlight streamed through the window I'd repaired myself last summer, catching the dust motes that danced above his dark hair. "Mom, can I have extra syrup?" he asked, his brown eyes, so much like mine, sparkling with hope. "Just a little extra," I said, ruffling his hair. At 33, I'd learned to pick my battles, and Sunday morning pancakes weren't one of them. That's when my phone buzzed. Mom's name on the screen made my stomach clench, a Pavlovian response built from years of disappointment. I hadn't heard from Janice Green in over a year. The last time was a curt birthday text that felt more like an obligation than genuine care. "We're inviting you and Caleb to your sister's wedding. Lana is marrying Derek Chen next month in Napa. As adults, we should all learn to forgive." I read it 3 times, each word like a small needle. Forgive, as if I was the one who needed forgiveness. Standing there in my small but immaculate kitchen, the one I'd painted seafoam green because it reminded me of hope, I was suddenly 18 again, pregnant, terrified, watching my father's face turn from shock to disgust to rage. "Get out of my house," William Green had roared, his banker's composure cracking like thin ice. "Don't bring your shame to this family." My mother had stood behind him, silent as always when it came to me. Even then, with my whole world crashing down, she'd only worried about what the neighbors would think, about how this would affect Lana, the golden child, the sunshine of the family who was only 16 and shouldn't be exposed to such poor choices. I'd left that night with 2 suitcases and a broken heart, my childhood room already being discussed as a potential home gym before I'd even reached the front door. "Mommy?" Caleb's voice pulled me back. "Your pancake's burning." I spun around, rescuing the slightly charred disc from the griddle. "Thanks, baby. Mommy was just thinking." "About what?" I looked at my son, this incredible little person who'd been called a mistake by the very people who should have celebrated him. He had their nose, my grandmother's stubborn chin. He was brilliant and kind and everything good in my world. "Just remembering something," I said, sliding the salvageable parts onto his plate. "Not important." That email haunted me through my shift at the tech company where I'd worked my way up from intern to senior software engineer. 10 years. That's how long it had taken to build this life from nothing. I'd been 3 months pregnant when I enrolled in community college, working nights at a gas station that reeked of old coffee and broken dreams. The manager, Rosa, had been the first person to show me kindness. She'd let me study during slow hours, even brought me homemade tamales when morning sickness made everything else unbearable. "You're gonna make it, mija," she'd say, watching me balance textbooks on my growing belly. "I can see it in your eyes. You got that fire." Some nights I'd fallen asleep over my keyboard, waking to Caleb's cries and wondering how I'd finish my coding assignment and still make it to my 6 a.m. shift. I'd survived on 4 hours of sleep and pure determination, pumping breast milk in gas station bathrooms and debugging code with a baby on my hip. My parents never called. Not when Caleb was born 2 weeks early and spent 3 days in the NICU. Not when I graduated with honors. Not when I landed my first real job and could finally afford daycare instead of the rotating cast of kind neighbors who'd watched him for whatever I could pay. The silence had carved out a hollow space in my chest that I'd filled with fierce love for my son and an iron determination to never need anyone again. Especially them. But that house, our little 2-bedroom cottage 3 blocks from the beach in Monterey, that was our triumph. I'd saved for 5 years, living in studio apartments where the walls were so thin I could hear every argument, every party, every reminder of how young and alone I was. When the realtor handed me those keys, I'd cried right there in the driveway. Caleb, only 5 then, had patted my cheek with his chubby hand. "Happy tears, Mommy?" The happiest baby. We'd painted his room together, soft blue like the ocean we could see from his window. I'd built his bed myself, following YouTube tutorials late into the night, determined to give him everything I'd never had. Stability, safety, a home that no one could take away. Now my mother wanted me to attend Lana's wedding. Lana, who'd gotten her MBA paid for while I'd scraped together community college credits. Lana, whose communications firm was funded by our parents, while I'd built my career one exhausting day at a time. That night, I sat on Caleb's bed, watching him sleep. His science fair project, a volcano we'd built together, sat on his desk, proof of his curiosity and brilliance. In the soft glow of his nightlight, I made my decision. We'd go to the wedding, not for them, but because I refused to hide anymore. I'd built this life. I'd earned my place in the world. They could no longer make me feel small. The Silverwood Vineyard sprawled across Napa Valley like something from a magazine, all golden light and perfect rows of grapes. Caleb pressed his face against the rental car window, eyes wide. "Mom, is this whole place for Aunt Lana's wedding?" "Seems like it, buddy." I'd never called her Aunt Lana before, but I figured he should know who she was, even if she'd never bothered to know him. I'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on a simple lavender dress I'd found at a consignment shop. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed trying too hard. Caleb looked adorable in his little vest and bow tie, his hair slicked back the way he'd insisted real gentlemen wore it. The moment we walked in, I felt the weight of eyes. Extended family who'd been fed 20 years of stories about poor Natalie's choices. My mother appeared in a cloud of expensive perfume and practiced smiles. Natalie. She air-kissed my cheek, her lips barely grazing skin. "You came. You invited us." Her eyes flicked to Caleb like he was an inconvenient +1. "And this must be—" "Caleb," I said firmly. "Your grandson." Something flickered across her face. Discomfort? Shame? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that polished smile that had graced 1,000 charity events. How nice. "Lana's in the bridal suite if you want to say hello. Try to—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Be supportive. This is her day." As if I'd come to cause trouble. As if I was still that scared 18-year-old begging for understanding. We were seated at table 12, so far from the main event we might as well have been in another zip code. Next to the kitchen doors, where servers brushed past constantly, their trays held high. Caleb didn't mind. He was fascinated by everything, from the towering flower arrangements to the string quartet. "Mom, this is like a movie," he whispered. I squeezed his hand under the table. "Pretty fancy, huh?" Lana's entrance was pure theater. She floated down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than my car, her smile camera-ready. She looked beautiful, I couldn't deny that. The golden child in her natural habitat, surrounded by admiration and applause. During the reception, I kept Caleb entertained with quiet games, avoiding the clusters of relatives who whispered behind manicured hands. We were invisible, which was fine by me. I'd made my appearance. We could slip out after cake. Then my father materialized at our table. "Natalie, we need to talk." William Green looked older but no softer. His gray suit was impeccable, his silver hair perfectly styled. He still had that banker's way of looking at you like he was calculating your worth. "Dad," I said, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. "My office, bring the boy." It wasn't a request. Caleb looked up at me, uncertain. I wanted to refuse, to walk out right then. But something, maybe that old need for approval that I thought I'd killed, made me follow. The office was a private room overlooking the vineyard. My mother was already there, perched on a leather chair like a queen holding court. The door clicked shut with a finality that made my skin crawl. "Sit," my father commanded. I remained standing, pulling Caleb closer. "What is this about?" "Family," my mother said, as if the word wasn't a bitter joke. "We've been talking, your father and I, about healing, about moving forward." "Lana and Derek need the good start," my father interrupted, never one for his wife's circular approach. "They're building something important, a life, a business." "That's nice for them." His jaw tightened. "Don't be flippant, Natalie. We're offering you a chance to be part of this family again, to make amends." "Amends?" The word tasted like ash. "For what?" for the embarrassment, the disappointment, for throwing away your potential. His eyes flicked to Caleb. For your choices. My son pressed closer to my side. I could feel him trembling slightly, picking up on the tension. Get to the point, I said. Your house. My mother leaned forward. It would make a perfect wedding gift. Lana's always loved the beach, and Derek's company is expanding to the Bay Area. You could move back here, closer to family. We might even help with arrangements. The room tilted. I actually felt dizzy, like someone had punched me in the stomach. You want me to give Lana my house? Don't be dramatic, my father snapped. It's a generous offer. We're willing to overlook the past, bring you back into the fold. All we ask is this small gesture of reconciliation. Small gesture? My voice was rising. That house is everything. I worked for it, I bled for it, I built a life for my son. Your son. My father's voice dripped disdain. The mistake that cost you everything, and you're still too selfish to see it. Still that same stubborn, prideful girl who couldn't keep her legs closed. The slap came before I could process the words. His hand across my face, sharp and shocking. Caleb screamed, a sound that tore through me like glass. Mommy! I tasted blood where my teeth had cut my cheek. The room exploded into chaos. My mother gasping, footsteps running, the door bursting open. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard someone shouting, saw a woman with a phone raised, recording. Lana appeared, radiant in white, her face a mask of horror, not at what our father had done, but at the scene itself. You always have to ruin everything, she shrieked at me. Even today, even my wedding. Caleb was sobbing, clinging to me. I dropped to my knees, gathering him close, whispering reassurances I didn't feel. It's okay, baby. We're okay, we're leaving. Ma'am? A woman's voice, calm and authoritative. I'm calling the police. That was assault. I have it on video. I looked up to see a petite Asian woman in an elegant emerald dress, her phone still raised. Behind her, a small crowd had gathered, their faces a mix of shock and judgment. Please, I whispered, my son. I'm a family attorney, she said gently. Marissa Tran, let's get you both somewhere safe. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Caleb sat beside me, wrapped in a blanket someone had found, his face still blotchy from crying. Marissa had stayed with us, her presence an unexpected comfort. You don't have to do this, she said quietly, but I think you should. I thought about walking away, about letting them win again, letting them reduce me to nothing. Then I looked at my son, my brave, beautiful boy who'd watched his grandfather hit his mother, and I knew. I want to press charges. The next weeks blurred together. Statements, lawyers, my father's attorney trying to make it disappear with money and threats. Marissa, who'd taken my case pro bono, was relentless. I grew up in a family like yours, she told me over coffee one afternoon. Different culture, same poison. The golden child and the scapegoat. The one who could do no wrong, and the one who paid for everyone else's sins. How did you survive it? I stopped trying to earn their love. Started building my own family instead. Chosen family. She smiled. Looks like you did the same with Caleb. The trial was a media circus. Tech executive assault's daughter at society wedding, made for juicy headlines. Lana refused to testify, claiming she hadn't seen anything. My mother took the stand and lied through her teeth, but the video was damning. So were the other witnesses, guests who'd been appalled by what they'd seen. I had to tell my story, all of it. The pregnancy, the abandonment, the years of silence, the demand for my house. By the time I finished, the courtroom was silent. They didn't just throw me out, I said, my voice steady despite the tears. They erased me. For 15 years, I didn't exist. Until they needed something from me, until they could use me. And when I said no, when I tried to protect what I'd built for my child, my father hit me, in front of my 7-year-old son, because in their eyes, I'm still just the shameful girl who ruined their perfect family. Caleb didn't have to testify. Marissa made sure of that. But his artwork from therapy sessions was submitted as evidence. Pictures of a dark figure hitting a purple figure while a small blue figure cried. It broke my heart and strengthened my resolve simultaneously. The verdict came on a gray Tuesday morning, guilty of assault. William Green, pillar of the community, would serve no jail time. Privilege still counted for something. But the probation and restraining order were victories. He couldn't come near us. Neither could my mother, named as an accomplice in the attempted coercion. Lana's business imploded. In the age of social media, being the bride who blamed her sister for being assaulted was publicity poison. Her clients fled, her perfect image cracked beyond repair. They tried to apologize. Emails, letters through lawyers, messages from family friends, all variations of the same theme. We're sorry, but also, why did you have to make such a fuss? Why couldn't you just let it go? I deleted them all. Are you okay? Marissa asked after the trial. We'd become friends by then, bonded by shared experience and mutual respect. I'm free, I said, and meant it. She smiled. Good. Now, I have a proposition. I'm starting a nonprofit, legal aid and support services for women escaping family abuse. I could use someone who understands what it's like, someone who's built their own life from nothing. I'm a software engineer, not a lawyer. You're a survivor, and you have a house with extra room that could serve as temporary safe housing. Think about it. That night, I tucked Caleb into bed in our little house by the beach. Our house. Safe and whole and ours. Mom, he said sleepily, are we still a family, even without them? I smoothed his hair, my heart full. Baby, family isn't about blood. Family is where you're loved just as you are. Where you don't have to earn your place or prove you're worthy. We've always been a family, you and me. And Marissa? I smiled. Maybe Marissa too. A year later, almost to the day, I stood in my backyard watching Caleb help Adam from next door fix our fence. Adam had lost his wife to cancer 2 years before we moved in. He'd been the first neighbor to welcome us, showing up with tools when I was struggling to install a ceiling fan. Now he came for Sunday dinners, helped with homework, and taught Caleb how to throw a baseball. Looking good, gentlemen, I called out. Adam grinned, his weathered face crinkling. Your boy's got steady hands, natural builder. Like his mom, Caleb said proudly, making my heart squeeze. The doorbell rang. Marissa entered with her usual whirlwind energy, arms full of legal folders and grocery bags. Emergency ice cream run, she announced. Board meeting snacks are essential. Second Roots had officially launched 6 months ago. My dining room served as headquarters, my spare bedroom as temporary housing for women starting over. We'd helped 12 families so far, women who'd been discarded, erased, told they were nothing, women rebuilding from scratch, just like I had. Any word from them? Marissa asked quietly while Caleb was distracted. I shook my head. The last letter from my mother had come 2 months ago, pages of self-pity and accusations disguised as apology. I'd filed it with the others, evidence if we ever needed it, but otherwise forgotten. Good, she said. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you. That evening, our little house filled with voices. The board of Second Roots, all women who'd survived family rejection, gathered around my kitchen table. We planned fundraisers and legal clinics, safe house networks, and childcare cooperatives. We were building something my birth family could never understand, a foundation based on genuine support, not obligation or appearances. Adam stayed for dinner, as he often did now. He and Caleb had developed their own ritual, building model planes while I cooked, filling the house with comfortable chatter. Sometimes I caught him looking at me with something soft in his eyes, but neither of us pushed. We'd both lost too much to rush toward anything. Mom, can we show Adam the telescope? Caleb asked, bouncing with excitement. The meteor shower's tonight. After dishes, I said automatically. I'll handle dishes, Adam offered. You two go set up. I'll join you. Under the vast night sky, my son pointed out constellations he'd learned from library books. His voice rang clear and confident, so different from the scared little boy in that vineyard room. He'd had therapy, of course. We both had. But mostly, he'd had consistency. Love. A home that no one could take away. There, he shouted, as a streak of light crossed the darkness. Make a wish, Mom! I closed my eyes, but I couldn't think of anything to wish for. Everything I needed was right here. The wedding was nothing like Lana's. No vineyard, no string quartet, no tables organized by social hierarchy. Just our backyard strung with lights, mismatched chairs borrowed from friends, and Caleb in a bow tie he'd picked out himself. You sure about this? Adam had asked that morning, nervous in his simple gray suit. I know you've been on your own a long time. I'm not on my own, I'd corrected gently. Haven't been for a while now, just took me time to see it. Marissa officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this. The guests were our chosen family, colleagues who'd become friends, neighbors who'd become aunts and uncles to Caleb, the women of second roots who'd taught me that survival could bloom into something beautiful. Natalie came to me broken, Marissa said, her voice carrying across the small gathering. Not by circumstances, but by people who should have protected her. People who told her she was worthless, shameful, a mistake. But here's what those people never understood. You can't break someone who's already been reforged in fire. You can only make them stronger. Caleb stood between us, holding the rings in his small hands. He'd asked to say something, and I'd agreed despite my nerves. When I was little, he began, voice clear, I asked Mom if we were a real family, even though it was just us. She said family is where you're loved for exactly who you are. Adam, he looked up at the man who'd become his father in every way that mattered. You love us exactly like we are, so I guess that makes us a real family now. There wasn't a dry eye in the yard. Later, as the reception wound down in our living room, now headquarters for Second Root's expanding operations, I stepped onto the porch for air. The ocean breeze carried salt and possibility. The house looked different now, fuller. Adam's tools in the garage, Caleb's increasingly complex science projects taking over the spare room, legal files and donation boxes stacked in corners. It was messier than I'd ever allowed it to be before. It was perfect. You okay? Adam found me there, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Just thinking. About? About how they were right in a way. My parents. This house was never meant to be a fortress. It was meant to be a home, a real home, with people coming and going and noise and love. So much love it spills out the windows. He kissed my temple. Poetic for a software engineer. I have depths, I laughed. Inside, Caleb was showing Marissa's new girlfriend his telescope, explaining enthusiastically about light pollution and optimal viewing conditions. Two women from Second Roots were deep in conversation with my coding team lead about cybersecurity for abuse survivors. The house hummed with connection, with purpose, with the exact opposite of the cold silence I'd grown up in. I thought about the email I'd gotten last week. Lana, reaching out after 2 years of silence. Her business had failed, her marriage to Derek already crumbling. She wanted to reconcile, she said, to understand why I'd chosen to destroy the family. I'd deleted it without responding. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. Some people couldn't see past their own reflections long enough to recognize the damage they'd done. But I wasn't angry anymore. How could I be? Every cruel word, every rejection, every moment of abandonment had led me here, to this house, this family, this life I'd built with my own hands and filled with people who knew how to love without conditions. Come on, Adam said. Caleb's about to cut the cake. And you know how he gets with sugar after 8 p.m. I laughed, letting him pull me inside. Through the window, I caught my reflection, 35 now, laugh lines and all, surrounded by the warm glow of my home. They said I was just a single mom, I thought. They were wrong. I was an architect, a builder, a woman who took the broken pieces they left me with and constructed something they could never understand, a life worth living. A home worth protecting, a family worth choosing. The sound of laughter pulled me back to the present. Caleb was standing on a chair, regaling everyone with the story of how Adam had tried to build a birdhouse and accidentally created what looked like modern art. The room erupted in good-natured teasing. This was what I'd protected. Not just walls and a roof, but the right to fill those walls with love on my own terms. The right to choose who deserved a place at my table. The right to show my son that family isn't about blood or obligation or maintaining appearances. Family is where you can fall apart and be put back together. Where your victories are celebrated and your failures are cushioned. Where a scared teenager with a positive pregnancy test could transform into a woman strong enough to build homes, literal and figurative, for others who'd been told they were worthless. Hey, Mom, Caleb called out. Tell them about the time you tried to fix the garbage disposal. Betrayed by my own son, I said dramatically, but I was smiling. As I launched into the story, complete with water spraying everywhere and me covered in coffee grounds, I realized this was my greatest victory. Not the house itself, but what I'd filled it with. Laughter, safety, unconditional love. Everything they'd tried to steal, everything they'd said I didn't deserve, blooming wild and beautiful in spite of them. Or maybe because of them. Because sometimes the family that breaks you is just preparing you to build the family you choose. Through the kitchen window, I could see the ocean in the distance, constant and enduring. Tomorrow, there would be more women seeking shelter, more battles to fight, more healing to facilitate. But tonight, in this house I'd protected with everything I had, surrounded by people who loved without condition, I was exactly where I belonged. Home.